I'm Chris Bussing. Welcome to my channel. It's committed to helping more people create freedom and opportunities in their life through success in tech sales and the pursuit of self-development. We've got an amazing guest today, Camille Bransford-Mills, or Camille, as she goes by. I don't know why I said the full name. Here with us. And the coolest thing is she's a sales trainer at AWS with a focus on the GovTech team and probably some other teams that she's training up. And there are 3 people from my tech sales career that worked at Google and Oracle that are top sellers that she's trained up. So shout out to Tate Ewing, who started with me at Oracle as an SDR and now is at AWS. Shout out to Stan Williams, who started with me at Google, and David Tigas at Google, who transitioned to AWS, and all have worked with Camille. So super excited to dig into Camille's transition from being a teacher to breaking into tech sales and becoming a trainer. And also in the process of going through this journey, we're going to learn about what it takes from a mindset and execution perspective to be successful as a seller and really to impact customers and create meaningful relationships through storytelling. So that's my TED Talk introduction here. Make sure to like the video because the YouTube algorithm loves that too, and we'll show this video who could benefit from the message, or show the video to more people who could benefit from the message. Subscribe to the channel for weekly videos and inspiring interviews with folks like Camille. And let's dive into it. So Camille, how's your day going? Thanks so much for joining us today.
Chris, thank you for having me. It's going really well. It's one of those things that, right before the call, I have a 3-year-old. So she decided to have a complete meltdown. My husband and I are running around like crazy. We're shushing people. We're pulling blinds, but fantastic. We're doing great. We're here. I'm ready.
I would have never known. How do you balance having a family, which is a full-time job, while also managing your AWS family? You're training people, you're doing a lot in your time. So how do you balance all that?
Man, so at AWS, I'm the enablement leader for educational technology and government technology. And you're right, it does feel as you work with individuals that they become your family. But also there's a pretty clear line of career and work-life balance that I'm fortunate enough that the leaders that I work with, my own managers, my skip levels, they all really support that mission. So I'm allowed to be a mom and be a badass career woman, and be a mom and be a wife. And that's something that the leadership around me has made plausible. And that's really where that balance, I get to have that balance, which is really incredible. But my little one, Charlotte, she's 3 and spunky and full of life.
The cutest name, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Webb.
But I want her to see that, like, her mom can be in the office. Her mom can stand in a room of 100 people, and she can come home and dance ridiculously in the kitchen and cook dinner together. And so I think it's important for me to show her that you can have both, that it's an and instead of a but.
Wow. I love that phrase. It's an and not a but. You really can have it all. Being an amazing mom, wife, having a great family life, and having a great career and talking in front of 100 people. And hey, you're dancing behind the scenes with your daughter. Are you ever dancing up in front of 100 people?
No, absolutely not. No dancing, no singing in front of people. There's a hard line of what people can tolerate and before they leave in mass exodus. So absolutely not.
There you have it. No singing and dancing out in front of people when you're giving sales training talks. So one thing I wanted to dig into with you to get the good vibes flowing is, why do you love tech sales? Like, what are some of the opportunities that it's opened up for you in your life?
I mean, all the opportunities it's opened up. So I began my career as an elementary school teacher. I taught 3rd grade at this really incredible school in Seattle, Washington, where I lived. And I thought, without a doubt, that I would live, breathe, and die by the classroom. My dad was an educational researcher. It had been ingrained in me, I think, from the moment I was born, that I was going to be in the world of education. And one day I stood up and was giving a presentation to fellow educators. And there was an account manager from McGraw-Hill, actually, that came up to me and said, you would be great in sales. And I said, no, absolutely not. There's nothing that you could say. And she said, well, we'll give you a credit card and a car. And I said, all right, sign me up. I sold out so fast. But that really opened up the door for a lot. It opened up the door for me to use what I knew in education and take it into educational sales, it allowed me to find what I was passionate about. It allowed me to find areas that I really struggled in, and then to build myself more of having the confidence to talk to people, of having the confidence to be told no, and to understand that falling isn't failing. It's just an opportunity to get back up. So without sales, I don't think I would have learned those lessons as quickly. And then the opportunities began to just kind of roll in different avenues. Let's try account selling. Let's try sales presentations. Let's go into sales enablement so that I could really find what worked for me so that I could be successful in the field.
So Jackie Arganbright says it's an and way to role model the way, Camille. So Jackie, thanks for showing up. Johnny Feelgood's here. We've got 9 folks live. I'm sure that number might grow. And thank you for your time and attention. Really excited about this conversation with Camille. And Camille, I was curious to get your thoughts on Simon Sinek. And, is that famous talk, Start With Why. And my buddy David Tigas had said that you were passionate about this topic. So could you kind of explain a little bit about the concept of starting with why and maybe even your why?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So starting with why really is about finding kind of this authentic center of what you believe in, what you belong, where you hold your professional integrity. And I think that so much of our life is spent at work and doing work. And so when we have our why kind of firmly rooted, that helps us be our authentic selves. And in sales, I think that may be the biggest differentiator that we can possibly offer is who we are authentically. And so I believe it's critical to think about your why, to know your why, and also know that at different stages in your life, that why is going to change. And so having the ability to reflect, to refine, and to rethink your why is also critical.
So what I'm hearing is our authenticity is actually a way to escape competition, in a way, to really connect with a customer and really show who you are, to build a relationship that lasts and leads to business. And it reminds me of another TED Talk by a guy, JP Sears. I don't know if you've heard of him, but it basically talking about the concept of how your weirdness is your superpower. But do you find that at Amazon, and again, I feel like I'm supposed to say this, the comments here are not representative of our companies, but I think we're only going to say great things about Amazon. It's such a great company. But do you find it's a culture where you can really show up as your full self and you're encouraged to do that in the way you engage with customers?
Yeah, it's interesting because they, on the inside of Amazon, we talk about it being a very peculiar culture. It's a culture that you kind of get immersed in when you first get in, and then you really feel like you're kind of part of something. But Amazon AWS is really, they talk about being customer obsessed. And so the way that you define customer obsession is really critical in your success there. And I believe that finding your way, Amazon is a huge, huge company. It'd be really easy to get lost if you didn't know your why or what you stood for or how to stand for it in a company of that size. And so it allows you to be who you are because you have to be, because everybody's smart. Everybody is smart there. I'm no longer the smartest person in the room. I don't know if I've ever been the smartest person in the room, but I've definitely
right now. No,
yeah. I've definitely pretended to be the smartest person in the room for a really, really long time, but I can't even do that at AWS. There's so many smart people. So
yes.
You have to ground yourself in who you are and know that you have something valuable and insightful to bring.
When I was talking to Tate Ewing, again, who you've trained, shout out, he said that one of the things that he loved about AWS is that it's like he's getting an MBA, like he's learning about business, like the principles are so unique, and obviously what led Amazon to become such a monster company. He also works with tech companies that are dynamic and evolving. He's learning about their business models that way, but particularly he said that AWS culture is like getting an MBA versus past companies that he might have worked at that was more transactional, just like get the sale. But AWS is like much more than that. Are there any other aspects of the culture at AWS that you particularly love that keep you super happy?
Well, the people, I mean, I think that's like, I think I would always go back to the people. I think of the individuals on my immediate team that I would say are not just my manager, my coworkers, but my friends. I would say that the sales team that I support, I'm invested in them. And I think we even see it like as people reposted this link for today, there are people that I looked at that I admire so very much, and for them to like something or repost something or share, like one thing I learned in sales is like you're loyal to people more than you're loyal to a company, because people are what is going to drive you to keep coming back. They're the ones that are going to push you. They're the ones that are going to hold your feet to the fire. And so the people that I get to work with at AWS sets it apart significantly.
Yeah, I mean, that's just such a great reminder that it's all about people at the end of the day. And I feel very fortunate being at a partner that works at AWS to be able to be in the office and experience that culture and get to know some of these amazing Amazonians. So shout out to LinkedIn user. I can't tell, I don't see your name. We're going live to LinkedIn and YouTube, and the video will post immediately after. But he or she, because I don't know, is here with AT&T Corporate. Definitely loving what you're saying. They said, serve customer first and move faster, act boldly, and win as one. I like that. And riffing off it, and I have a bunch of other questions where I wanted to take the convo. We'll get back, but to the tangent. How important is it to work as a team when selling at a company like AWS, where you're selling like all the technical solutions, so many flavors and things that the customer could use? Like, how important is it working cohesively as a team? And like, what does that dynamic kind of look like based on your experience and what you've seen?
So it's interesting. So I started off in educational sales. And so, textbooks, digital, all of it together. And in that dynamic, there were account managers, and then there were curriculum specialists. The curriculum specialists were really the subject matter expert. And as a seller, you would lean into them to kind of deliver these high-level presentations, or then if a customer purchased something, to really nurture them through the journey. You then take a size or a company the size of AWS, and it massively expands in the amount of support that you need. So you have account managers, you have vertical experts that know the industry, that reach in. You have CSMs who come in to make sure that customers at every step of the journey are supported, technical account managers, solution architects. And all of those individuals have to be a cohesive unit, because at the end of the day, the customer is the most important person in that relationship. And so you all on the back end have to work together and communicate and share ideas and update Salesforce, right? So that it's more, yes, unfortunately, but it has to be done so that it can be a more streamlined experience for the customer at the end.
Yeah. And another thing too is empathy of your own teammates and leadership. Like, I realize I don't like updating Salesforce. I just want to talk to customers. I love this, having conversations, reaching out, coming up with a creative email. But me logging opportunities accurately impacts the business. Like, and my our CEO and how he reports. So we're a global company. So actually, he just got named global CEO. That's kind of cool.
That's very cool.
But just reporting up to leadership so they have visibility to, if they're a public company, report to their investors. And it actually really does matter. Like, that one data point you as a seller report up to then report up again. And so just, I guess, something I've been thinking about, Camille, is having empathy for the leaders who need that data, and having that be a why that drives me to do it when I don't want to. Or like my solution architects, like you mentioned, you really described very well the whole orchestra of people that are involved in supporting a customer who's at the center, but giving them, the data they need or the notes ahead of time to set them up for success, So it's interesting that you transition though from, I think you said McGraw-Hill, to selling such complex solutions and now teaching folks how to do that. And I wanted to go back to it, the topic of breaking into tech sales before then getting back into like what it takes to succeed at a company like Amazon in these types of roles. A lot of the audience wants to land a job in tech sales. Maybe they want to become an SDR at a top company, or some might be shooting for AE roles. But They don't have any experience and they're trying to navigate, how do I pick the right companies? It seems like this came to you. Because you were living authentically and you leveraged naturally your passion for teaching and had a smooth transition into sales at McGraw-Hill and then eventually ed tech, and then AWS found you. Like, any high level guidance on how people with no experience should begin to think about the types of companies they apply to?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I would say first thing, like, let's go back to your why. What is it that you want to do? What do you want to have impact in? Like, for me, education runs in my blood. I don't see myself working in some way where I'm not in some sort of education. So right now I have this great ability to work with the educational technology team, right? And the government technology team. But I also get that sense of education because I get to work with and train and build account managers to be successful in the field as well.
Yeah.
Right. So that's still, that why is still there and firmly rooted in who I am. And I think when I was a teacher, the other thing I'm wildly passionate about is public speaking. I love it. It's opened up more doors for me in my entire life than any other skill that I have. And that's been kind of a natural skill.
That's crazy. By the way, we were talking like how you don't really get nervous.
Well, hold on.
Actually, okay.
Absolutely get nervous. I just try to, like, if you saw the 10 minutes beforehand, like, I probably changed my outfit 6 times. I've recurled my hair 9 times. I think there were 6 power songs I listened to. Like, it was a full hot mess before we went live.
That's how you ended up like this. Wow.
There you go.
I do push-ups sometimes. Like,
yes.
But I was like, people were like, why is this guy sweaty? But anyways.
Yeah. You just,
okay. So even Beyonce gets nervous, right? So
I'm
you're basically
sure.
Beyonce of tech sales training. No, I'm kidding.
I'm sure.
Okay, so go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So you find that why, you hold on to it, and then you'll realize, like, if you're living in that why, in that vision, then opportunities come and open themselves. I think where people sometimes falter, right? So let's take your example. I'm early in my career. Maybe I'm not early in my career, but I want to get into tech sales and I don't have the experience. And somebody says to them, hey, I have an SDR role open. And they're like, oh, no, I want to be account executive or account manager, or I was a leader in my last, I was a people manager, so I'm not going back. But the reality is, if you don't have that experience and you don't give yourself the opportunity to try something new, you're never going to get in. And so I would say, take the call. Whenever you get that LinkedIn message from somebody, whenever that recruiter reaches out, whenever you're networking, take the call from people, see what they have to offer, see if it aligns with your why, and then allow yourself to have those moments of undetermined risk, right? This idea of jumping in feet first without knowing for sure that you're going to succeed. Because if you don't, you're never going to grow, ever.
Wow. Yeah. And you hit on the power of public speaking and that you get nervous still, but you show up anyways. And can you speak a little bit to, if there's anything else you want to add beyond listening to your power songs on how you prepare, and maybe you show up in spite of those nerves, and that's the first thing. Yeah. And then also, like, maybe getting people excited about the opportunity that speaking presents, like, and how it can actually open up new opportunities in their life. Because I kind of want to challenge people to get out of their comfort zone. Yeah. Maybe someone here today will hear this and be like, let me try speaking. So again, there's 2 questions, and I'm almost losing track myself. But the first one is how you get yourself in a state to deal with nerves and show up anyways.
So practice is really important, which seems silly, especially in like a live situation, right? How do I prepare for this? Well, you prepare by going through what questions you think you're going to be asked, and then you say them audibly. You practice them out loud. I drove to the office today. I said them aloud. I had a coworker of mine, Scott Carter. I said, hey, listen to these questions. Listen to my answers. What do you think? We talked about different ways to go through them. I said them aloud to myself when I came home. My poor husband, I got in. I'm like, let me tell you this. I'm talking. I'm curling my hair 6 times. I'm talking through again. But when you actually have words come out of your mouth, move from your brain to your mouth, it's different synapses that go off in the brain as opposed to just, I'm going to think about what I'm going to say and then execute it out. And when you have that moment to grapple with the words, then when it's really time, you feel more prepared. We spend hours prepping content and almost zero time practicing how we deliver that content.
Gosh, that just practicing that's such good advice.
Yeah.
And it takes work though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
is it because of like, I mean, you're a passionate person, you have a strong why. Like, is that what drives you to put in the work? Maybe it's like a commitment to who you are and your identity, a necessity. I am, this is who I am. I ask like this because I notice a lot of people know that practice is the answer, like leading up to an interview to get a job in tech sales or give a speech, but it's easy to self-sabotage and not do what we know we need to do. And I even can do that. And by the way, I practiced even before this of like the questions I wanted to ask you and the mindset and how I intention. So this is such good stuff, but is it just natural that you put in the practice proactively, or how do you motivate yourself to do that?
No, wait, how many push-ups did you do beforehand?
I did, oh gosh, we'll try and you. 52. No, I made that up. I actually do push-ups this one. Sometimes it's Wim Hof breathing, but yeah, anyway.
Yeah, just kidding.
Great
So, okay, motivation and discipline are two very different things. And being motivated to do something can come very, very quickly. So in October, I'm running a full marathon. It'll be the third full marathon I've ever run in my entire life.
Wow.
I hated the first two marathons.
Gosh.
I hated it. And the reason why is because I didn't prepare well for them. I like ran kind of intermittently. I ran with my very closest friend, Emily, and we really did not put in the work. And the reason is you're motivated when you sign up. You're motivated when it's coming close. But that time in the middle is the discipline that you need to have in order to do it. And I haven't always been a wildly disciplined individual by any way, shape, or form. But when it is important, that's when discipline has to kick in. So start small, right? Maybe you have an interview and instead of saying like, okay, I'm devoting an hour every single day until the interview, start with 18 minutes. If you practice something, I just read this on LinkedIn, 18 minutes every day for the rest of the year, like you're going to be more prepared than half of the people in the world are in that subject area. So start small, gradually grow. You'll begin to create habits. You're going to see some rewards in the practicing, and then that discipline begins to grow even more.
That's really well put. I think this is just an important topic to think on because I find myself all the time like knowing I have this big moment and I need to, or preparing would be very beneficial. And yet I allow the time to pass and like kind of overthink it and make it into a big deal. And next thing you know, like there's urgency that leads me to practice, but not as much as I could have.
Yeah.
And
I just want to say, like, if my coworkers are on the phone right now, or if they're listening, like they're also laughing because I also tend to like, I'll practice the content saying it all day, every day, but prepping the actual content and getting it like organized and ready to show people, like that is last minute in my books. And again, it goes back to that discipline where you feel comfortable, but you got to push yourself to set those measures of discipline.
Yeah, really great reminder. And Steve Sirachi, if I'm saying that right, said preparation breeds confidence.
Ooh, so very nice.
Right. Scott Carter says 100% with 4 percentage points symbols.
There you go. Scott Carter also doing push-ups in the office today. So there you go.
Okay. Were they diamond push-ups? So many variations.
You can tell me there.
Yeah.
I love that. Was it preparation breeds confidence?
Yes.
Yeah. Very nice. Very, very nice. I love that.
So Des in tech, who I know to be Des, thanks for showing up. She's really consistently coming to these live streams, and she's in the process of breaking into tech sales, but mindfully. She's trying to find the right fit and follow her passion like you have. She wanted to know what's Camille's favorite power song?
It is not Hear Me Roar by Katy Perry, which for some reason, that is the most response that I get.
Okay. It's not that.
No, it's not that. It is though, like, so I'm a huge Taylor Swift fan. I know that's probably not shocking. So she has You're on Your Own Kid, which is a new song, which for some reason is a very sad kind of song,
Oh,
but like that one really motivates me of like, there's not really people to catch you if you fail. But there are always people there to help you get back up, right? Like if you fall, if I'm walking down the street and I fall, I can't stop that necessarily from happening, but I do have people around me that will always be there to lift me back up. And to me, that song is very powerful. Also, Eminem, like some gangster rap, I'm also
the collapse.
100% on. Yes.
Oh my gosh. And Taylor Swift is, she's so good. And I'm the problem. It's me. I remember that one on TikTok all the time. Like, have you gone to any concerts lately?
Well, not Taylor Swift concerts because you know that, but I did go to Charlie Puth recently, which was fantastic.
Oh, I love that. He's got a couple. I feel like music is just such a great tool to like stir up emotions. You know, it's funny too how like a sad song can like about a breakup, and I'm like single guy, like it somehow like triggers something in me. It's random, and it's like. Let's see here. We've got Aaron Fuller. Thanks for showing up. Who says he wants a small discussion on lead generation. Okay, that's what the people want. We can get to that after this, though. We wanted to hit the second part. I didn't forget of what types of opportunities public speaking has opened up for you. Could you give us a few examples? It sounds like things have flowed from it.
Yeah. So when I was a senior in high school, this is the first time that I realized that public speaking is a skill that is not just meant to excel in your career, but it's a lifelong skill. So senior in high school, I went to a very rural high school, and my dad was a college professor at Vanderbilt for 30 years. And he was traveling all around the nation to promote his book. He wrote a book called How People Learn. And I had this really amazing opportunity to go with him to a lot of different college campuses to check it out, to see where I wanted to go. Well, in this really itty bitty rural town that I grew up in, college visits were not an excused absence. And I did not know this. I didn't know actually until 2 weeks before graduation, when I got a notice in the mail that I would not be graduating with my class.
Oh my gosh.
So the only option that was left was to appeal at the school board. So my mom and I went. We stood in this line that at this point in time, thinking back on it, it felt like it was a mile long. And we stood shoulder to shoulder and we watched parent and kid go up to this microphone, and there was an elevated stage of 12 men that were just rejecting whatever was being said left and right. And parents were getting emotional and kids were getting emotional. And about 3 people away from the microphone, my mom turned to me and she said, Camille, if you want to graduate on time, you need to stand in front of that microphone and tell them why. It does not matter if it comes from me. I am an irate mother and I look like every other mother. You need to stand up and you need to say why it's important to you. And she took out like something in her purse that was crumpled up and a pen. And we wrote down 3 reasons. I couldn't tell you what the 3 reasons were now, but that was the prep. It was 3 people in front. And I remember hand shaking in front of that microphone and speaking to these 12 men I had never met about why it was so critical that I graduate on time and go to school. And they unanimously approved me for graduation. Yeah. And that's that moment for me that I thought, if you can stay calm and collected, if you can show value, if you can pull at people's heartstrings, you can propel yourself in a direction that you don't even quite know where it could possibly lead, but it's a way better direction than where you were.
Wow, what a great story.
Yeah.
And a lot was on the line, and you rose to the occasion, and even if you can't remember the exact words or points, like that's a powerful story. I love how you even told that. And we'll get into storytelling to close out the conversation soon. But I got a handful of other questions, a lot of questions I wanted to ask you. But Aaron wants to talk lead generation. And Aaron had messaged me on LinkedIn a bit ago, and he said he was excited for this conversation to get your thoughts. He transitioned from SaaS, selling SaaS,
Yeah.
Which means, it's more, it's usually would solve a specific business problem, and there's a more narrow focus. You might sell to a line of business, HR tech. I don't know what type of SaaS he might have told me that he came from. He's now selling like cloud, but through like a managed service provider. So, it's like selling cloud. It's solution selling. And I think his challenge, he was saying, is that before it was much more simple and clear, like who to reach out to in the messaging. And now he's having trouble focusing because you could do like a migration or talk about building a data warehouse. And you know this stuff. But any advice from a lead generation perspective when it comes to selling it and doing outbound on behalf of a company like AWS or an AWS partner, and how to focus and be successful?
Yeah. So the first thing I'm going to say is that hi, Aaron, thank you for your question. So glad you're here. Hey, there is somebody that was on live. I don't know if he still is. His name is Scott Carter. He is the like global lead development enablement leader at AWS.
Oh.
He's a fabulous person to reach out to for specifics. Like that's what he does all day, every day, is enable these people. So find him on LinkedIn. If Scott, if you're on, like send in your stuff, connect with people, helping people help people. That's what we're doing. So he can give like really good specifics. I'm going to give broad specifics.
I'll reach out myself, by the way. That's amazing. Scott,
there you go.
He said I think was he the one who does push-ups, or was that Steve?
Yeah. They could do push-ups together. I don't know. It could be a whole thing.
Cool. Erica's here. Yay. Erica Kyoko. She says Scott's great. Erica seems like you're great too. So anyways.
Fabulous. Yeah. So I think the most important thing when you are doing lead generation is that you have to know your customer. So look into them, look them up, look up the people, look up what they do, be able to have some sort of connection. And then if you find that you're in a conversation with somebody, ask them who you should reach out to, so that then you can use their name to say, hey, Chris just sent me your way. I hear that you want to talk about migrations. Like, let's continue this conversation. And then when I'm meeting with whomever you just recommended me to, I'm going to say, I was just having this conversation about whatever it is. And now I want to talk to you about this. And the worst thing that can happen is that you're connecting with multiple different people inside of the same organization to solve multiple problems. And at the end of the day, that's not the most terrible thing that can happen. So do your background research, jump into what you know, right? Don't just go into the conversation saying like, so tell me what keeps you up at night. Because people don't have time for that anymore, right? So do some background work, start networking, use that network to build your network even greater.
Yeah, I love what you're saying about networking, because that's the ultimate shortcut to get meetings, is if you can build your relationships, and eventually, Scott, who knows this CTO or knows someone who knows that CTO, and having that warm context helps so much. But I love what you're saying. Just research, put in thoughtful preparation, and just partly you got to show up. And I think, Aaron's talking about the SDR role, and tell me your thoughts on this, but also there's something to be said for the numbers game. Like obviously you want to have a quality approach and be personalized and focus on the right type of company. But I don't know if this is your expertise, Camille. And we're going to talk about some of the advice you've been given in storytelling and maybe more later stages of selling. But do you have any thoughts on like the SDR role and it being a numbers game? Do you think that's actually a thing?
I mean, probably yes and, right? So I think if you're reaching out to more people, right, then opportunities might be more valuable or viable in that sense. I also think, though, if you're just continuously reaching out to the wrong people, it doesn't matter how many times or how many different wrong people that you reach out to. And so you have to know enough about what you're selling and why it would be a benefit to someone, and then find those people that you're reaching out to. And then if you have a multitude of those people you're reaching out to, then absolutely it's a numbers game.
Very insightful. And by the way, I'm pumped up. David Tiggis, as I call him, Tiggy Azalea. I don't know if I told you that. Showed up, and he said name dropping is everything too. 100%. I love that when I can say, like, maybe you talk to someone who's a salesperson because it's a low hanging fruit, and then you can learn about the organization, and they get it. Like Camille's cool. She's actually trying to help, or Chris is doing the same thing. And they are willing to pass you along to the right person, and you learned a little bit about the organization, or you put in the subject line, like if David's the seller, like David referred me to you or something like that. Well, I feel like that name dropping is clutch. And do you have anything to add on to that? Because I was also
I was just going to say, like, the fact that I'm on this right now is because you dropped David Tigges' name.
Yeah.
I got the LinkedIn message and I was like, and no disrespect to you, Chris, but I was like, I don't know, Chris. And I almost just like, whoosh, and then I saw David's name, and I'd just been with David the day before in a training. And I was like, wait, what? And I remember David specifically because he had a 1-year-old baby and he hadn't been sleeping.
Oh, this kid's so cute.
Story and like how to get the attention of this big deal that he's working on. And that all connection, like that's what led me here, was because you knew somebody that I knew. So now I immediately have trust with you to move forward.
Yes. That is such a, thanks for calling out that example. And one, there's a couple things. One, this is an example that prospecting, that was a form of prospect. I prospected you. Right. It's a lifelong skill. So for people who are SDRs, like it's more than just a title and to get beyond quickly to go to AE, but developing the prospecting skills, and that could include nuanced things like name dropping, is critically important. And also, when on my end, when David has, he's a close personal friend, and we've gotten camping together. I really admire him, have a lot of respect for him, and he wants me to succeed with this YouTube channel. He actually, oh my gosh, Camille, this is crazy. And for anyone out there who's on now, like we've come a long way. We're over 2,000 subscribers now. We're growing fast, but when I originally started a channel, 0 subscribers, didn't even exist. I delayed for 3 months, analysis paralysis, and I finally found myself, with a glass of whiskey, and then and kind of really still overthinking it, but like I'm finally going to do this, get over the edge. And David Tiggis was the one who sent me a video of Gary Vee before doing his wine review videos that was like really crappy, and then an after Gary Vee video of like now where like just like crazy following. And he was part of the reason why I got over the edge to start the channel. And now he's the reason why I connected with you. Because the point is I have a lot of trust with him, and he spoke so highly of you. He's seen my guests. I've had Matt Dixon, the author of the Challenger Sale, Harvard professors on here. And he's like, I've seen your guests. Camille is amazing. And he was absolutely right. And so we've gotten so much out of this conversation. We still have time though, and more questions. I wanted, while we're on the topic of David, and I hope you're still here, David, could you talk about storytelling now? Because I think you worked with him in particular, like you might have an example of how you helped him craft a story to connect with his clients. But maybe high level, like why are stories so powerful? And then maybe we could talk a little bit about the example you had with David and any other examples.
Yeah, sure. So I think that, I know that when you interact with people, in the first 7 seconds, people decide if they trust you or not. And in the first 8 minutes, that's about as much of attention span that you have. And so you almost have to like re-up, right? Like think of it as like a ticket. I'm going to give you a ticket. Pay attention, pay attention, pay attention. And we do that by being engaging. Tech sales sometimes is not the most engaging topic to talk about. Yeah. And so, and it's not really concrete. I can't give you something a lot of the times and say, here's what you're getting, right? So I have to put it in a way that you can understand, that you can wrap your head around. And as you move further in to tech sales and you begin to be more successful, those conversations that you're having are at a C-suite level. Today I talked to somebody in particular that's now going into the private equity level, right? That's where they're making connections and building relationships. Wow. Very cool. And so when you do that, you have to be able to relate to them in a way that they can take what you said, that they can remember what you said, and that they even can tell somebody else like, oh, this is why we're doing this. And so setting yourself apart, not becoming a commodity is incredibly important. And we can do that with storytelling. It's our oldest teacher, right? It's ways that we tell our own legacies. It's what we had when we were kids, and people connect and resonate with it more than anything else. And so
Yes.
doing it in sales is critical for success.
Yeah, it's wired in us. And I've said this before on in other conversations, but there have been fMRI studies that show like brain activity and brain sync up when we're telling stories. So what are some examples of, like, say with David, I think you were telling me a story about in his local market that he was selling to, like, this imagery of people in water. I forget, but could you take it away and tell us a little bit about what that
Yeah,
looked like?
so I'll give you David's example. So first of all, I'm going to say this, like, stories and selling, they can happen in a multitude of ways, right? It could be that you're introducing a topic, and I'm thinking about David in particular. David came up and he was like, how many of you got a great night's sleep last night? And people were like, yeah. And he's like, well, I didn't, because I have a 1-year-old and I haven't slept for 365 days, whatever he said, right? So it immediately pulled us in. And then he took this turn where he was like, do you know who else isn't getting sleep? Is the Louisiana Police Department. And he talked about how there are so many natural disasters and they're not set up for success. And so anytime that something is on the horizon of happening, that, you know, that security, that safety is taken away. So like, that's an example of a story. A sales pitch is an example of a story. As you do the arc of what you want to do, as you give implications or complications, as you build up another customer story, so the customer that you're talking to can see themselves be the hero throughout that story. That's another example. I also think there's someone that commented earlier, Steve Srirachi said something about, you know, preparation, right? I think about a story he was told recently about how he makes connections, and he learned that his largest customer loves the PlayStation 5. And so like he took interest in it, right? He's learning it, he's talking about it. So he's something that is remembered with that CTO in himself, so that there's something more than sales. Like, that's what storytelling does. It connects us at a visceral, emotional level.
Yeah. Oh, it's such a good reminder. If we could start, you know, building our quiver of story arrows, I guess, if that we'll go with that before, and pull out the right one at the right time, that could be really powerful. Like, we're talking to a startup customer that is at a certain stage of their growth, like Series A funding, and maybe we have a story of another Series A startup that we helped that was facing some challenges around this and that, and then we help them overcome the solution or the challenges. That can be really powerful. And I was curious, Des actually had a question about whether you have a framework. We're getting a little technical, and maybe you have more of you kind of flow with it, but maybe we're looking at, like, you could say, yeah, go ahead.
Well, first of all, there's tons of frameworks that work out there. Like, if you look up, there's the hero's journey, there's the story mountain, there's 3-step, you know, ways. What I would suggest doing is looking them up and saying, what path works best for me that I can remember. Where storytelling can be an issue is when you don't relate it back to what's being said, or there's this incredible sales trainer I know, Faraz Obidot, that used to talk about the me monster. Like, when you're just talking about yourself constantly and you lose everybody else. And so, you know, you have to find that balance between the two. So I would say look it up. I can send you an example of a framework that I like to use for storytelling. But then as you begin to do it and it becomes more authentic, you'll be able to pull it out pretty quickly. And you do store away those stories like quivers to use. And you'll beg and borrow and steal from everybody else. My husband says there are 3 great ideas left in the world. The rest we just take. So I highly suggest that.
Yeah, I think the best art is steal, you know, and so no question, I'm going to be stealing some of your nuggets to pass on other people. And
perfect.
Hey,
I'm sure they were stolen as well. So we'll just continue the stealing.
Thievery. But Stephanie Zezo, thank you for showing up. She popped on because of you, Camille, because she said you're amazing, and she's been loving this whole conversation. So isn't it fun when you get, thank you to the folks who showed up live, and again, to the people that will show up in the future as this floats out in the YouTube sea of content. But it's fun to have this engagement. I wanted to, I'm keeping an eye on the clock like I would in a sales call. You know, I know you got a family to get to and everything and be with, but okay, I'm gonna go this one. We talked about 3 pieces of advice you got in sales, and I can remind you if it's not coming top of mind, but yeah, I think you might know what I'm talking about.
I do.
Stuck with you. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So 3 pieces of actionable advice that I've gotten. So I mentioned earlier, my husband, he is SVP of sales at a company.
Cool.
And
is it a startup or enterprise or in between? Or
he is a educational publishing ed tech company.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So curriculum, but he works in the digital, the SaaS part of it, actually. Cool. So one of the very first things I ever heard, and he's a phenomenal storyteller. Like, he puts me to shame 100%. In fact, the very first time I ever heard him speak at the company, I remember thinking at the end of it, if he were to say right now, like, all right, I want everybody to stand up, run out this window, and jump 13 stories to the floor. People would have been like, all right. And they all would have gotten up and done it. Like, that is the power that his stories held. And
wow,
that he loves and his mentors are the same way. So
what a power couple. Oh my gosh.
There you go. Take us to a party. We're uncontrollable.
Did you meet through work, by the way? I'm always that.
Okay.
Cool. Love that. That's awesome.
So the piece of advice that he used to say is like, be the handshake that never lets go. And it's the idea of relationships, but not just, oh, I'm going to take you food, or I'm going to get you wine, or we'll take you out to dinner. But it's the idea that when there is a problem, who is the first person that they think of for a solution? And that handshake that never lets go has been something that's so thoroughly ingrained in me that even if somebody's like, Camille, I know that you're not the person who can fix this, but can you at least help me brainstorm who to go to, or how to fix this, or how to solve this problem? So that's the first piece of advice I was given.
Love that one. Handshake that never lets go.
Handshake that never lets go. The second one I was given, actually from the vice president of the company at the time, Sean Ryan. He said that your goal in sales should be, every account that you have, your goal should be to sell something to them before you retire or before they retire. But it's about this idea that we're not going in a stance of, I have to sell something to you today. It's on sale, hot, act now. But again, that we're building that relationship as we go through, so that this person, these people, these customers that you're working with, look at you not as a seller, not as an account manager or a car salesman, but somebody that's there to provide solutions and to be a true trusted advisor. Mm. And then the third one, which is maybe my favorite one, just because of the way that it sounds, is don't fall in love with your baby. Now, I say that with a 3-year-old who I love very, very deeply. But this came from President Chris Willig, was her name at the time. And she would tell this story when she met with people about her son, who was an actor in LA. And his very first production, she went to go see him. And afterwards, he came up to her and she had tears in her eyes and she wrapped her arms around him. And he said, Mom, how did I do? Be honest. And she realized she had no idea. She had no idea. He could have been fantastic. He could have been lousy. But all she could see was the first time she held him in her arms, or when he took his first steps, or when he went to prom.
My mom reminds me of these things all the time, by the way.
Yeah. Yes. And so when we are selling, if we don't see the flaws of our own solutions, or we don't have the idea that our solution might not be the best answer, we lose trust with our customers, because we can become defensive, we can become arrogant, and we can just push people away because we're not willing to admit that our baby is sometimes ugly.
Oh gosh, that's so good. These are so memorable. So sometimes we might have to actually face the music and admit our baby's ugly. And then, from there.
Yeah.
Maybe do
But you know
something. I don't know, but I love that metaphor. Like, and we're definitely not going to forget that tidbit right there.
And you'll find sometimes if you say to somebody, listen, I hear your problem. I have this solution here. It might not be the best solution. Let's talk through it. And then let's see what else can be done. They're almost always going to come back to you again when there is a solution that you can solve.
Really, really good insight there. Now, if you're going to be successful selling at a company like AWS, really the best of the best, invented the cloud, enterprise sales, many solutions is awesome, right? Making the big bucks. Don't you need a certain mindset shift to really be effective? And I think you might know what I'm talking about. But what type of mindset shift is needed in terms of the way you approach selling?
You know, Chris, I thought about this a lot today. And I think originally, when we kind of talked about this previously, I told you that, you know, you should focus on the benefits for your customer, right? Instead of features and tech, we can do this a lot, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, we have, you know, 99.999% resiliency and blah, blah, blah. And people are like, yeah, cool, great.
We're
But
so great.
yeah, very quickly. But when we can talk about what that means for a customer,
yeah,
what it'll bring value to them, it really comes through. But I thought about who does this well, who is the best mind shift in selling? And I have a completely different answer for you if you're willing to hear it.
Oh, I love that. I love spontaneous things like this.
Yeah, there you go. Now, Stephanie, she's on the call. She's actually heard this before. I've given this same talk because I think it is the mindset that we need to have as sellers, which is when you are a seller, you should model yourself after the mindset of the Girl Scouts of America.
Ooh.
I know you didn't think there. You thought hunter or gatherer. No.
I bought those cookies.
Well, here's the reason why. If you're honest, right? Girl Scout cookies are fine. They're good. They're tasty, but they are not the best cookies out there. And in fact, in the market, we're saturated with competition. We've got crumble cookie now, which is delicious, and you know, homemade cookies from people's moms. Like Girl Scout cookies aren't necessarily the very best, yes, but it's an $800 million business.
Oh my gosh.
$800 million business. And in fact, between the months of January and April, Chris, 200 million boxes of Girl Scout cookies are sold. It's 4 months out of the year. And in those 4 months, they top the sales of Oreo, Chips Ahoy, and Milano cookies combined.
Oh,
it's wild. So why, right? Like that's what really led me to this. I read this whole article about it and I was like, wait, I don't understand. What do you mean? $800 million of mediocre at best cookies. It's because how we're selling and not we. I'm not a Girl Scout. I don't have any Girl Scouts, unfortunately, but if I did, I would absolutely be just pushing that cookie sheet like nobody's business.
Yeah, watch, you're like pushing Girl Scout cookies, you're like linking their
leaving
a partner. Anyways, yeah.
No, but so think about this. The Girl Scout cookie started in 1917, maybe. I think that's the date. So 1917, from a girl in her cafeteria, great. Since then, think of all the changes that it's made. We now have virtual, we have QR codes. On top of that, you don't, let's say you're doing your push-ups. You don't want to eat Girl Scout cookies. That's okay, Chris, because you can donate to the United States of America troops. And we will send Girl Scout cookies across the sea for individuals and make them feel at home. You don't have cash on you? That's okay. As a Girl Scout, I'm sitting outside of the grocery store, so I'll still be here. You can get cash back when you check out. Or the most recent article I read about taking station outside of marijuana dispensaries, because I know as a seller that you know that later you're going to be hungry, and this beautiful box of Girl Scout cookies is here to support you along the way. That's what's amazing about the Girl Scouts, is they're constantly thinking about the market, they're thinking about the changes, and they are adapting their story to meet people where they are at, not forcing them in door-to-door sales in a little basket like they used to do. They're constantly changing. They're constantly adapting. They're looking at their customer to be different, to be relevant, and to meet them where they are.
Wow. That's a really good nugget in terms of being successful in, yeah, like we said, at a company like AWS or Google or a monster like enterprise company where you have so many types of solutions and you actually do have the opportunity to adjust and meet them where they're at. And so if we could take away one thing, I mean, there's so many things to take away. That is just one of the many things. So,
Be a Girl Scout.
like I can remember that. Like that's like a mantra I can tell myself, like before these interviews and before everything. Like, and actually, I read a book by Brendan Burchard called High Performance Habits. Do you know Brendan Burchard?
No, but I'm going to write that down right now.
Yeah, he has coached Usher and Oprah and top executives. And actually, when I started at Google and I had Noogler orientation, and David went through this, where you get your spinny cap, the lead MC and trainer, she had interviewed Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google, was actually a huge Brendan Burchard fan. And he has 6 habits, in his book, High Performance Habits, that are very, very powerful. He like studied, just like Tim Ferriss with Tools of Titans, the top executives in high performance, what they did. And one is seek clarity. And so just tying a bow on this topic, like setting intentions, he said like that top folks would actually like, before I'm talking to Camille, like, how do I want her to feel? How do I want to feel? Like, what are some of the messages I want to communicate? What are the questions I want to ask? What are the actions I might want her and us to take together? And so do you, I kind of just riffed off on this tangent, but how important are intentions for in your world and in terms of how you show up? And are you a big proponent of this?
Yeah, absolutely. So I teach yoga on the side.
Cool.
Not normal yoga, it's like boot camp yoga. So, but there's a lot of intention in class. And I think it goes back to when motivation runs out, where does discipline set in? But it also helps too to think about like intentions and objectives seem like a very similar thing to me. So like I have an agenda for our meeting we're going to talk about in sales. I have objectives in the meeting. I hope to gain these objectives. And I'm wondering if you also can see eye to eye with these objectives. Is there an objective that you have? So you're almost asking in a way, you can, superimpose intention, objection in the same sense there of like, what is it that you want to gain out of this? And how do I also allow you to know what I'm trying to gain out of this as well? Because I think if we're going back to clarity and we're going back to sales, that's a really excellent way to let your intentions be known and also take an account of other intentions so that they can meet in the middle.
Are there any other habits or practices like yoga, which is so cool you do that, that are critical to you in order to show up at your best for your family, for for AWS and your customers and your reps?
So I almost have to do some sort of physical activity every day. It's just for my mindset, for my own time to be quiet, to be introspective. It's time to listen to music really loudly, to get on the Peloton, to go outside for a run. But it gives me time to, I think it gives me that clarity, right? And also it allows me to get unstuck. So if I'm in a situation, I will not be able to, if I can't have a creative idea, let's say, like I go outside, I go for a walk, I go for a run, I come back, I have like 14 ideas ready to go. And the reality is that for most of us, we sit during the day and you actually lose blood flow to your brain. So when you stand up, that blood flow comes through more and you can have more creative ideas. So for me, that's huge. I have to move my body every day.
Yeah, no, I love your ability to improv, because I've thrown some questions at you that I didn't like prepare you for, but that's just it's cool that you have a lot of depth behind the why you move your body and are physical. And I do feel like, man, it's so nice to get out of the brain into the physical body, because we are knowledge workers. And I'm sitting at a desk, and I noticed once I got into tech sales, that actually was a challenge that I had to manage, was that I could easily be sitting at a desk, you know? Yeah. So I only had a few more questions for you because we're hitting time. I just knew this was going to be a conversation that went a little bit over because there's so much good stuff. But I wanted to ask you maybe like 3 more questions. One is, are there any sales books, or I could expand it to any other books, like Start With Why by Simon Sinek, that have really shaped you in your professional life?
So yes. So I worked at a company where my director that I worked with quit. And I decided that I was going to talk to the regional manager and put my name in the hat. And Chris, I had no business putting my name in the hat. I zero business. Like I hadn't managed, I hadn't been a people manager. Yep. I had no idea about the territory. And I remember this regional manager, instead of laughing at me, kind of took me under his wing to mentor me for a little bit, and told me some of the best advice that I've ever gotten, which is just to read. And he said, sure, read your sales books, whatever sales books you see that inspire you. But then read about economics, read about war, read about love, read about things that you passionately agree with, and read about things that you passionately disagree with. Because when you are networking and connecting, that knowledge is going to shape you, make you more interesting, make you connect with people. So Jared Diamond, I really love. So The World is Flat, in Guns, Germs, and Steel, like he writes those novels, which are incredible, and their history, nonfiction, incredible. Actually pulled out some of my favorite books. So this is one of my favorite nonfiction books, which is A Gentleman in Moscow. It's like gross. That's how much I read it. A Gentleman in Moscow.
Wow.
Highly recommend it. It's phenomenal. And then in the same kind of line of Simon Sinek, there's Adam Grant's Think Again.
Oh, cool.
This is a huge book that I love that made me really think about what I don't know, the power of not knowing something, and then how to, we live in a world that is extremely polarized right now, right? Like you're either Google or you're AWS, right? You're left or you're right, but there's so many things that could be solved if we could find this middle ground. And so Think Again is an incredible book to make you stop, reflect, and then think about, how do we have these conversations? Brene Brown is another one that I love. So.
Yeah, Brene is just very inspiring, the work she does around shame and vulnerability and courage. And she's impacted a lot of folks that I know personally, including myself. So really great recommendations, by the way. These weren't the typical, like, read this book on the sales methodology of the Challenger sale. And one thing I took away that you inspired me on is just to consume as much information as possible, especially information around things that we're passionate about. Like, who doesn't love love, or at least the idea of love? And so it's like, hey, reading books on love, maybe it'll help, the single person like myself manifest that in their life. But the only other thing I'd add on top, or just to riff off what you're saying, is I really like Ray Dalio. I don't know him personally, but his book Principles, right? And a 6-time founder and keynote speaker that I know, Rich Robinson, who at some point it'd be cool to connect you with him too, because he does a lot of speaking and it's more like entrepreneurial focus. He said, I'm like, what's a book that shaped you? He's like, Principles by Ray Dalio. And he says, he has all these like really cool things. And one is your output's only as good as your input, So it just makes me think, the more knowledge you're taking in, the better. And then also, don't you think, are there other ways that you learn? And I'm kind of putting words in your mouth, but like, I'm thinking of like through people and mentors. Like, are there other areas where that ways you've accelerated your learning and your growth?
Yeah. I think the fastest way to get smarter is to shadow people, right? Yeah. Call people, ask them, hey, can I sit on one of your calls? Can I listen to how you do this? There's a senior account manager, enterprise account manager at AWS that was thinking they were going to have a normal call, and it turned into a compete call, right? And it was not at all what he expected. But then to hear him methodically go through to stay calm, to answer questions, to talk about objectives, to get an executive level C-suite meeting at the end of that call, and then be able to handpick what that agenda was going to be. There's no better learning than seeing that in action. I also recommend that the people that you look up to, ask them what they're reading. So there's a extremely brilliant woman I work with, Vanitha and Mike Lombardi. They're a team of, essay leaders and account manager leader. And they were reading a book about a minimalist. I think it's called The Minimalist. And it's all about this idea of if everything is important, nothing is important. And so once I got like this wind, like that's what they were reading, like that's the first book that was in my Kindle, like 100%, so that I could talk their talk, understand what they were trying to find importance. And also it allows me to be a better enabler to them as they push through as well. So observe people, shadow, ask questions, podcasts, things like this. This is huge. This is absolutely huge, because there's a hustle that you have to have and that you have to give yourself. And this is part of that hustle, is getting smarter.
Yeah. And kudos to everyone who showed up, and we've still got 5 folks with us that have stuck to the end. Thank you for your time and attention, and for being the type of person who's looking to learn and grow and contribute to this community. And again, we've had so many takeaways, but a takeaway I'm getting right now, that a call to action for the audience, is to go out there and find mentors, find opportunities to shadow and learn from your mentors while they're in action. Ask questions about what they're reading, and learn from the folks who can model the way. Camille, I'm going to have a lot of questions for you on sales enablement, because that's something I see for myself. And, I'm just so glad we have this beginning of relationship. And I know we're going to have you on again at some point. I'm sure the audience would love that. But as we wrap up, I wanted to ask you, the final thing I want to hear about is your vision for the future and what you see for yourself. But before that, I want to talk about using storytelling to maybe land a job. Again, a lot of the folks on this channel want to break into tech sales. And David Tigas said we're in the wrong industry and maybe we need to get into the Girl Scout industry. So we might need advice on how to land a job in that domain. And Erica Kyoko, by the way, who's been great. She again was very impressed with your cookie knowledge, Camille. She threw out.
I'm never going to hear the end of it.
So, love that emoji. So but any advice for the folks trying to land a job, how to use storytelling as a tool to really connect with your interviewers and try and land that job?
Yeah. So the majority of interviews that you're going to go into, they are going to be asking the same questions to every person that they interview. So the way that you can structure an answer around the story will be critical. It needs to be concise. You don't have a lot of time to win people over, but you want it to be memorable. So I would absolutely recommend it. And the STAR method, right? The situation, a task, an action, a result. Make sure you have all of those in how you answer an interview question. But make sure that you bring who you are into those stories, into those responses. When I got hired at AWS, my manager, Kim Kelly, who's an incredible leader, I will never forget, she was shadowing someone else doing a phone screen, and she took over the call. And later I learned that there was something in that first 3 minutes where, as I answered something, she was like, this is the person, this is the person that will fit. This is the person that will complement our team. This is the person that I think can do this role. And that's by being yourself and being authentic in your answers and getting out of those nerves and being truly who you are.
So outside of, being authentic, one of the things I wanted to ask you about is in terms of the level of detail. I'm curious, how do you find a balance? Because you said you want to be succinct and punchy. Yeah. And maybe you allow them to double click, but I've heard folks, this is particularly for the entry level SDR role, that got feedback they didn't get a job because they I don't know if they went into enough detail, and maybe the the interviewer might have they might not have seen concrete or doubted their credibility. And maybe they did have the credibility, but any thoughts on like what level of detail is appropriate for telling stories?
So I would go back to that STAR method. What's the situation? Give enough of the situation that people can really ground themselves and see it as a movie in their head. What tasks did you perform? What actions were taken? And then what were the results? There's a great deal of time that we begin to tell stories, especially in interview settings, where we don't have firm results based off of what we did.
Yep.
And Amazon does the interview process is so interesting. But one of the things that it makes you do is really quantify the story that you're telling and end results. And so being confident in what you did, even if you've done it as a team, saying, I did this and here were the results. And that confidence is going to bleed over to whomever is interviewing you. So stand in that, know that you have the worth as well. And I think that that's going to really make a shift for people.
Yeah, stand on the STAR methodology. Guys, if you implement what Camille's sharing, I'm very confident you'll make an impression in a competitive market, because it is competitive. So these nuggets are very invaluable. So Camille, here we are at the end of this journey. It's been fun creating this interview. And again, thank you to everyone who showed up. And as you write your future story and the future chapters of the life of Camille, what are some of the things that excite you the most and that you're really looking forward to?
I love it. If you asked me 5 years ago where I would be today, there's no way that I could tell you. There's no way I would tell you I'd be working at AWS. If you'd asked me 10 years ago, I would have asked you what AWS was, right? So there's part of me that has no earthly idea of what, the next, what my world will look like in 5 years. What I hope it looks like is that I'm grounded into things that allow me to live out my professional integrity, that I'm grounded in family and love, that I'm not afraid to take chances, that I open up doors for opportunities, and that also I don't hold myself back by expectations. Every opportunity I've ever been given is because I decided to take a step out on a ledge that I wasn't sure if it was stable or not. So my goal in the next 5 years is to keep taking those steps, to keep taking those risks, and to know that the only way that I can grow and get stronger and better is by doing that.
What a great note to end on. And you also answered my question, really, like, what does it take to live a good life? That I was thinking, I want to throw in an extra question, but you really answered it. And, we got to get you back to your family to fulfill on that vision of being grounded in love and family. But guys, in terms of a call to action, I encourage you to step out onto that ledge and put yourself out there and connect with Camille on LinkedIn. If you're cool with that, Camille, which I feel like
please. And if I can't help you, I'm going to introduce you to someone.
Yeah, I mean, what a unique opportunity to learn from her today, and also connect with her and have her in your corner. So take her up on that opportunity. I know you mentioned Scott Carter, who showed up, and some other great folks from your team. And hey, maybe shoot Scott a message too, particularly Aaron Fuller, who was asking about outbounding. So great recommendation, Camille. And of course, don't be a stranger, connect with me. Guys, cheers to you living fully and stretching yourself to become the best version of yourself possible and really being fulfilled in your life. That's what this channel is all about. Camille, thank you for your time. And any other final thoughts as we sign off?
No, I am so thankful for you to bring me on. And I hope that, in that 3 months before you launch, like, you're going to make a difference in people's lives. And I don't know, hang your hat on that and be proud of it. It's pretty amazing.
Amen. I feel like I'm in the church of tech sales and life motivation and inspiration. So Camille, I can't wait to the next one. Eric is already saying, thank you for your time and look forward to the next session. And guys, have an amazing rest of your night. And I look forward to seeing you in future videos as well. Happy selling and happy living.